The X Zone Radio Show with Rob McConnell is largely an opinion talk show. All opinions, comments, or statements of fact expressed by Rob McConnell's guests are strictly their own and are not to be construed as those of the X Zone Radio Show or endorsed in any manner by Rob McConnell, Relmar McConnell Media Company, the X Zone Broadcast Network, its affiliated networks, stations, employees, or advertisers.
All Hit Radio.
Welcome to the X Zone, a place where fact is fiction and fiction is reality. Now, here's your host, Rob McConnell.
And welcome to the X Zone, everyone. My name is Rob McConnell. It's a brand new week here on the X Zone in Hamilton, Ontario, Canada, and boy, are we ever glad to be back here with you, members of the X Zone Nation, for another week of entertainment, enlightenment, education, and some of the greatest guests on any radio station, any radio network these days. The X Zone comes to you Monday through Friday from 10 p.m. Eastern until 2 a.m. Eastern right here on the Talkstar Radio Network. And my producer tonight at Master Control is the one and only Batman. Nice working with you again, Batman. And if you'd like to give us a call at any time tonight, our toll-free number is 1-877-528-8255. Now, that is toll-free throughout the U.S., Canada, Alaska, and Hawaii at 1-877-528-8255. My email address is xzone@talkstarradio.com. On MSN Messenger, you can chat with me here in our studios in Hamilton by using the MSN Messenger address talkstarradio@hotmail.com. On Yahoo, I am X Zone Studio, and our websites, www.xzoneradio.com, that's our main site. xzonetv.com is where you can watch and listen to us live, and X Zone Store is where you can buy all your X Zone merchandise. On tonight's show, we have Cliff Mickelson. He's my first guest. He'll be joining me in a couple of moments. We're going to be talking about Morgellons and doing a Morgellons update. In hour number 2, Anna D. Olson is going to talk to us about growing up Amish. And in hour number 3, Marie D. Jones will be talking about 2013, the end days or a new beginning. And Patrick Cook will be with us in our final hour for another edition of the Cook Report. The X Zone comes to you Monday through Friday, 10 p.m. Eastern until 2 a.m. Eastern on the Talkstar Radio Network, X Zone TV, and Shortwave. From our broadcast affiliates right across Canada, the United States, Central America, the Caribbean, South America, the Pacific Rim, 20 Asian countries, and now across Europe. Once again, our toll-free number is 1-877-528-8255. Cliff Mickelson is my first guest this morning, X Zone Nation. Morgellons disease is right out of science fiction novels, and that symptoms are not anything but ordinary. The victims report strange animal-like and other forms existing in their skin, usually accompanied by lesions covering many parts of their bodies. Most victims report brain fog, chronic fatigue, severe depression, deep pain in their joints, loss of hair and nails, and in some cases a strong urge to commit suicide. And joining me now is Cliff Mickelson, one of the most... how can I say this? He's out there talking about Morgellons all the time, and he himself is a Morgellons victim. And Cliff, how are you, my friend?
Doing great, Rob. It's really a pleasure to talk with you once again.
Always great talking to you, Cliff. And you were on a trek through Peru the last time you and I communicated.
Yes, indeed, I was down in northern Peru. Very fascinating. Totally another world down there.
Now, what were you doing in Peru?
Well, actually, I had a multi-tiered agenda. I was looking around a little bit. I wanted to kind of see. My main reason was to go down there and look through some of the ruins and the ancient from the ancient Indian cultures that existed in that area. But I was also kind of keeping my eye out for Morgellons cases and just keeping an eye out to see what the progress of this disease was in South and Central America.
And of course, while you were there, did you talk to people about Morgellons? Do they know about Morgellons down in South America?
Yes, actually, I was very surprised. I did run into some cases, and that was another real surprise. I wasn't really sure what I'd find down there. In Panama, I encountered a number of cases, and in northern Peru, I didn't get down into the southern part of the country, but up in northern Peru, I did encounter several cases. One I wasn't able to completely diagnose, but several others I was able to diagnose as being Morgellons. And people did know, they had heard about it.
All right, stand by, Cliff. You and I have to take a commercial break. We'll be back in 2 minutes. Cliff Mickelson is our special guest. And if you'd like to speak to Cliff, 1-877-528-8255. Toll free throughout the U.S., Canada, Alaska, and Hawaii. My name's Rob McConnell.
Did you know that when you're on the road with limited data or Wi-Fi, you can still listen to the X-Zone radio show with Rob McConnell, The Science of Magic with Gwilda Wiyaka, X-1, Dimension X, Space Patrol, and every minute of the X-Zone broadcast network by calling 213-401-0080, courtesy of Audio Now. No smartphone, app, or internet needed. It saves your data plan, and it's free if you have unlimited minutes. Call 213-401-0080 to listen on any phone, anytime, anywhere. Remember, 213-401-0080 for the best of the paranormal, parapsychology, and sci-fi radio programming anywhere, 24/7, 365.
Cliff Mickelson is our guest this hour tonight here on the X-Zone. And Cliff, are there any major developments in the fight against Morgellons?
Well, one of the major developments that has actually occurred just recently was down in Austin, Texas. On the 29th of last month, we held a convention, a Morgellons convention, and it was entitled the First Annual Morgellons Disease Medical Research Conference. And there were a number of excellent speakers. It was a chance for the community, for some of the more activist members of the community to come together. And the convention, Rob, was a stunning success.
Excellent. Excellent. Are you getting more and more reports of Morgellons? Did the convention bring attention, the badly needed attention to the public?
Absolutely. And one of the things that this convention did achieve was that it put many of the activist people in personal touch. They were able to get together afterwards, meet, compare notes. It came out quite strongly that there's just an onslaught of new cases. Every week there's more and more cases. And I might add that much to my dismay, the people that really should have been there, our good buddies at the CDC and at Kaiser, they never showed up. But some of the other people there, including Randy Wymore, Ginger Savely, Cindy Casey, who organized it, they all were there and gave some excellent reports.
Now, did people who just had a general interest in Morgellons come and see, to listen, and what were their comments?
We had a surprising number of people who came in a support role, people who were members of families who had Morgellons victims, and then other people who were just plain curious or wanted to lend their support. That was a really positive thing. One of the best conferences I've been to in a long time concerning this issue. Most people that came that weren't actually afflicted were very supportive, and that's been finding that kind of support prior to this period in time has been a real issue for us. So it was very rewarding.
Now, with all the new reports that you're getting in from people who now have Morgellons, has the CDC's involvement helped at all?
Well, it's a double-edged sword, Rob, in a way. Yes, it has. I would have to say that it has given the issue some credibility. We will wait and see and reserve judgment as to where the CDC's involvement will take us, but it has, for the short term, given the entire issue of Morgellons some mainstream credibility, which we desperately, desperately needed in order to overcome the flack that we've been receiving and the incredulity that we've had to battle against over the last few years.
Now, with this pharmaceutical company being involved, have they been in contact with you or any other fine members of the Morgellons research and team that we've been talking to here on air over the last couple of years?
No, they have not. I'm assuming that you're referring to Kaiser Permanente. And they have been extremely obtuse, be the best way to put it, inscrutable. They have not contacted anyone in this program, any of the main moving forces, the people that have been really making this issue public, Ginger Savely, all these people, Ralph Stryker, nobody's been contacted by Kaiser.
Now, don't you find that rather strange?
I find it very disturbing and rather ominous. I'm going to hope for the best on this, but there's a considerable body of people who believe that Kaiser has a vested interest in containing this issue, and the money that they were awarded by the CDC really isn't going to be enough to properly address this issue in the first place. So there is a group of people inside the Morgellons community who feel that this whole CDC-Kaiser nexus is kind of a false flag operation designed to more or less suppress and marginalize the issue in the end.
How could they do that?
Well, of course, never underestimate the power of a bureaucracy. They could do that by simply, one of the ways that they do that is by underfunding a study. Mm-hmm. If you can't perform a proper study, you don't have proper data, you can kill the study by just not calling the right people, by just pulling statistics that aren't relevant, and there's lots of ways that it can be done.
Now, Dr. Randy Wymore's done a lot of incredible work. How come they haven't, have they been in contact with Dr. Wymore?
This is a real sore issue for me, and I am extremely unhappy with the CDC about this, Rob, because Randy Wymore, of course, Dr. Wymore was in the forefront of this entire issue from the beginning. He's dedicated hundreds and hundreds of hours of his own time and his own money to this issue. And all the folks over there at Oklahoma State University have done this and supported him. They've received nothing from the CDC. In fact, the CDC refuses to even contact him. When he told me that he had tried to submit some of his information to the CDC, and they wouldn't even reply to his emails.
Why? That's ridiculous. Here's this man who's done so much work, worked with so many people, and yet they're refusing to acknowledge the information that he has?
Absolutely, and he's not the only one. Ginger Savely has also encountered this kind of issue. Greg Smith, Dr. Smith, who volunteered early on to work with the CDC and at least fill them in on what he knows, was rebuffed. And so that seems to be the pattern that we're seeing from the CDC Kaiser, is just one of we're not interested in what you have to say. About the best thing you can hope for is that they're hoping to do a completely independent study, but without any kind of outside outside influence.
Yes.
But I don't understand it, Rob. It's really very, very, very disheartening.
How is the morale within the Morgellons community these days?
It's getting stronger all the time. This conference went a long ways towards raising the morale of the people that actually are on the front lines. Mm-hmm. You know, of course, with any struggle such as this one, there's times where you just really can get down. And this kind of brought everyone together and gave everybody a chance to look around and say, hey, you know what? There's some energy here, and it's happening, and we've got good people and strong research, and this thing's gonna fly.
How did the local media treat it?
A little bit jaundiced. The local station there, I believe, is Channel 11 in Austin. They were there, and we were very grateful to them for that. They did put out a report which Google picked up on the internet. So that was a positive thing. But as far as the national media, although we did send out press releases and we did attempt to involve the media as best we could, the response as normal from the mainstream media was a little bit disappointing.
Unbelievable. Now, the people that were there who actually, like yourself, have Morgellons, were they exchanging stories? Were they exchanging ideas? Were they sharing stories? And you must have heard some real heartbreaking stories.
Absolutely. And, of course, one of the things is that one of the positive things that come out of conferences such as this is that there's a reaffirmation, if you will, where a person who may be isolated, or all of us who may be isolated in our day-to-day routines and in our day-to-day locations, can get together and compare notes and say, hey, you know what, I'm like you, you're like me, we're in this together, and this is what we've got, and your symptoms are identical to mine. Of course, as you and I both know, Rob, the symptoms of this particular affliction are so bizarre that it really, to be able to reaffirm that with other people, that really, really does help you stay centered.
1-877-528-8255 is toll-free throughout the U.S., Canada, Alaska, and Hawaii. Cliff Mickelson's our very special guest this hour. And Cliff has been on the show a number of times talking about Morgellons, that dreaded disease that nobody knows very much about. And finally, the CDC has gotten involved. They've given the research mandate to a pharmaceutical company. And we'll just wait and see exactly what happens. Now, Cliff, when are there supposed to be any results or any report issued by the pharmaceutical company who has been mandated by the CDC to investigate Morgellons?
That's an issue that a lot of us would like to know. It's been rather nebulous. They've been very inscrutable, as I mentioned earlier. But the general consensus is that they need to come down off the mountain with a pair of tablets sometime in the next year. So we're looking anywhere from 10 to 12 months. The concern, of course, is will they be able to meet that deadline? They were not given a lot of money by the CDC, so whether or not they're going to really be able to even fund a study is an issue that remains to be seen.
All right, here's a hypothetical situation for you, Cliff. The company the pharmaceutical company, if they were to do a proper study, funding whatever they need from their own little purse, and I don't know any pharmaceutical companies with little purses, isn't it possible that if they were to discover what the cause of Morgellons is, what Morgellons actually is, that they could in turn create some sort of pharmaceutical to either help or get rid of Morgellons, and that would bring them in tons of money?
Yes, it would. Kaiser Permanente, of course, they're a giant organization, and their primary business, although they are involved in pharmaceuticals, their primary business is insurance. Mm-hmm. So that's another point that many people in the Morgellons community have brought up as being one that raises some doubts as to their motives and their purity, as it were, in this particular study, their legitimacy for being assigned this study, because they have an interest in insuring people, and they have a large client base that is insured, mm-hmm. and so they also may find themselves having to pay out as a result of this as well. So we're not really sure how that's going to shake out, Rob.
Well, isn't it possible that there's a conflict of interest at hand?
Indeed, there is, on several levels, and one of the ones I'd like to address is the fact that in the past, Kaiser Permanente has ruthlessly, I should say, diagnosed all Morgellons patients, to the best of my knowledge, with what's called DOP, which is delusions of parasitosis.
Cliff, stand by, buddy. You and I have to take our news break at the bottom of the hour. Cliff Mickelson is our special guest. We're talking about Morgellons. 1-877-528-8255 is toll-free throughout the U.S., Canada, Alaska, and Hawaii. Cliff and I will be back after the news as the X Zone continues on the Talkstar Radio Network, X Zone TV, and on shortwave from our studios in Hamilton, Ontario, Canada.
This is the X Zone Broadcast Network, broadcasting worldwide on broadcast affiliates and satellite program providers, including CNN Broadcast Network, Sirius Satellite Network, Star Media, Good News Radio Network, Angel Broadcast Network, Wiki Broadcast Network, and WPBN TV. For more information on the X Zone Broadcast Network, visit us at www.xzbn.net.
Did you know that when you're on the road with limited data or Wi-Fi, you can still listen to the X Zone Radio Show with Rob McConnell, The Science of Magic with Gwilda Wiyaka, X-1, Dimension X, Space Patrol, and every minute of the X Zone Broadcast Network by calling 213-401-0080, courtesy of Audio Now. No smartphone, app, or internet needed. It saves your data plan, and it's free if you have unlimited minutes. Call 213 213-401-0080 to listen on any phone, anytime, anywhere. Remember, 213-401-0080 for the best of the paranormal, parapsychology, and sci-fi radio programming anywhere, 24/7, 365.
Welcome back, everyone. Cliff Mickelson is my special guest, and we're talking about Morgellons. If you'd like to get more information, if you'd like to make a donation, if you'd like to see what the people at the Morgellons family are doing, visit their website, www.thenmo.org. 1-877-528-8255 is toll free. My email address is xzone@talkstarradio.com. On MSN Messenger, talkstarradio@hotmail.com, and our websites, www.xzoneradio.com, www.xzonetv.com, and our new store at www.xzonestore.com. All right, Cliff, before we went to the commercial break, we were just starting to get into a possible conflict of interest with what the pharmaceutical or the insurance company involved in. And why would the CDC give it to a company that is not a pharmaceutical or a research company, but to an insurance company? This makes no sense.
Well, this is the first thing that raised flags for most of us in the Morgellons community was when that took place. It looked like a case of basically the old boy network routine, among other things. You know, and one thing I would like to say for the record is that I don't want to come across as being real negative here. Of course, we all hope that the bells ring and everything works out wonderfully, and the Kaiser Permanente performs its obligation to the fullest. But there's just too many loose ends here, and why they would be awarded the contract in the first place instead of a professional research organization is a very valid question. There's a series of other issues with Kaiser Permanente. They have a vested interest, and some people strongly feel they have a vested interest in not seeing this particular affliction properly analyzed and diagnosed. So, yeah, you raise a very good point, Rob.
What happens if the report that this company comes back with is not, in the opinion of the Morgellons community, valid? Like, can it be appealed? Can people go to the CDC and say, hey, listen, why don't we get another opinion?
Well, this is if and when this does occur, it's going to be a very serious blow for the Morgellons community, and the best thing that we can do is prepare for that potentiality. Mm-hmm. That's not to say that may or may not happen, but were that to happen, and of course stranger things have happened in the past when it comes to dealing with vested corporate interests. You know, you can never tell whose golden goose is being cooked.
That's right.
So you've got to be prepared for that. And, there needs to be a contingency to deal with that eventuality should it arise.
Do you have any idea how what is the name of the company that has been given the research contract?
It's, Kaiser Permanente.
Kaiser Permanente. Is there any idea on how they intend on performing this task?
Well, I wish I knew. And like I said, Randy Wymore, myself, Ginger Saley, Cindy Casey, none of us have an idea because they are holding their cards extremely close to their chest. All we're able to go on is the information that the CDC has released on their own website, and, of course, the press release that they released when they awarded that contract. Mm-hmm. And, of course, with these kind of things, when you're dealing with bureaucracies such as the CDC and with Kaiser, you have to look at some of the details and you can draw.
Are you there, Cliff?
Where the whole thing's going.
Cliff, we're having problems with you. We're having problems with your audio, Cliff. We keep on losing you sporadically.
Oh, I'm sorry.
It's okay.
Okay, I'm sorry.
Glad you're back.
Okay. You've just got to kind of draw your own conclusions from mm-hmm. not necessarily say, but they do.
We're having problems.
You read between the lines with these outfits.
Yeah, I guess another part of the question is, Cliff, if they're doing this research, aren't they going to be speaking to people who actually have Morgellons? And wouldn't these people contact the Morgellons family and say, hey, listen, this is what they're asking, this is what they're doing, this is how they tested me?
Okay, well, now you're really nailing it on the head here, because here's where, in my opinion, it lies the crux of the issue of conflict of interest. what's happening is that the CDC has instructed Kaiser to do this study, and what they're going to do is go back through their patient catalog and find all the people over the past 10 years that they have diagnosed with delusions of parasitosis and try to determine whether or not these people have Morgellons. Now, there's an immediate conflict of interest right there, because if they do that, they basically have admitted that they gave a false diagnosis. And so then you have the question of what are the legal ramifications of them bringing back in patients that they've already dismissed with an erroneous diagnosis and saying, oops, sorry, we want to see if you really do have something. So the pressure is going to be on them to say, no, you do have DOP, you don't have Morgellons, and by the way, don't call your attorney.
So it sounds like they've got that's not research.
No, it's covering your tail.
It sounds like we're back at the old witch trials, for goodness sake.
Yeah, and it's one hand washing the other, basically, is what what we're dealing with. They have a vested interest in not establishing the validity of this affliction, because they leave themselves open to all kinds of legal action for false and for erroneous diagnosis in the past.
All right, now here we are. It's an election year. Has anybody approached any of the candidates, the presidential candidates, and given them an earful of what's going on?
To the best of my knowledge, no, they haven't. However, we have had some very positive and encouraging results with some members of the Senate. In fact, the action taken by some members of the Senate and the House of Representatives were what led the CDC to at least throw down the gauntlet somewhat. Grudgingly, they did move forward because they receive a lot of pressure from members of Congress.
How long does it usually take the CDC to get off their butts and do something?
Well, in the case of Morgellons, it apparently takes about 10 or 12 years. In the case of some other things, about 5 minutes. And that's another very interesting conundrum that we've been dealing with. The CDC goes out and spends millions and millions and millions of dollars of taxpayer money to trump up a bunch of vaccines for diseases that never occur, but we can't seem to get them to come down off the mountain at all for this one.
Are authorities still taking children away from parents who are claiming to have Morgellons?
Rob, that's one of the saddest parts of this whole story, and yes, they are. I was talking with a friend of mine, a woman that I met there at the conference, Sandy Autry. She had that very same experience happen to her. I believe it was her granddaughter was taken away from her. She was the custodial guardian, and that child was taken away from her because of her diagnosis of DOP, because she tried to get help for her condition, Morgellons condition. It happens all the time.
That would just be like someone going to see their family doctor, talking about a disease or giving signs and symptoms of a disease or an ailment that they believe they have, and the doctor just scratching his head and saying, you know what, I don't think so. It could be this, it could be that, but it's not what you say it is. And yet they don't take away the children of those people. What is it with Morgellons? Is it because it's delusional that it's being classed as a delusion of parasitosis, and that gives them the state the right to take the children?
In effect, yes. To make it just plain cut and dried, that's exactly what's going on. And of course, the reason we encounter these kinds of diagnoses, these mistaken diagnoses, is because the doctors that are out there are either, number one, too lazy to figure it out, or they're just too crippled by their own training to investigate something and actually form their own opinions. It's not in their books, so in their world it doesn't exist. And so they chalk it up. Anything they don't understand, they just chalk it up to DOP. And then, of course, once you get that diagnosis, it opens up a real can of worms for you.
How do these people get their children back?
Well, I'm not really aware of anyone that has at this point. I'm sure there may be some people who have. But if you've got that albatross of DOP hanging around your neck, Rob, it will ruin your life. And all because you were looking for help. You were looking for help for a very real and very serious and ever-increasingly widespread affliction.
So we can only hope and pray to the powers to be that this report or this study comes out in favor of Morgellons, because there's going to be a lot of explaining to do by a lot of people.
Absolutely. And I think that even if we run into stonewalling from the people who are involved in this report, that the weight of this affliction, as it continues to spread, as it continues to move forward through all levels of society, will eventually tip the scales, and that some of us may not live to see that day, but nonetheless, this thing is just like Lyme disease, it's just like AIDS, it's just like a host of other diseases that were first relegated to the fiction bin that turned out to be just horrible, horrible realities.
So what's the next step? What do you do until this study comes back, Cliff? What do the people who are afflicted with Morgellons do? How do they get help? Where do they go for help? What do they do?
Well, there's a number of things. The first thing that I would like to say to the X-Zone Nation and to anyone listening is that we strongly urge people not to just say, okay, the CDC is going to study this or Kaiser is going to study this, so let's just kick back and relax. We got to keep on keeping on. Get out there and keep up the good fight. Move forward. Continue to educate. It's the corollary of location in real estate. Get out there and let the world know what this is about, because what is affecting your neighbor today may very well be on your doorstep tomorrow.
You know, I can understand the desire to tell the world, but what do you tell the world? You're fighting a losing battle. Nobody believes you.
Well, actually, you can do like you can lose a lot of battles and still win the war, and I think that's what we're all prepared to do. I don't care how many battles it takes, how many battles we are going to lose, and we've lost a lot of battles in the past. We're going to keep on losing battles until we win the war, Rob.
God bless you. You're one of the. Your group is one of the strongest groups I've ever had the pleasure of working with, and I just can't believe the brick walls that you and the other fine people within the Morgellons community go up against each and every day. It's like it's something out of science fiction, for goodness sake.
Well, it certainly does raise some eyebrows, and of course that gives a lot of ground for people. A lot of people say, well, the resistance that this particular affliction has run into is unlike anything that they've ever seen before. And, of course, then you need to go to the next step and say, well, why is that? What is going on here? Why is this resistance out there? And then you say, well, is there a reason for that? Does someone have something to hide?
Exactly.
And that's why you have this resistance. There's a lot of corollaries in other fields where you have vested interests that may or may not have something to hide, and so they minimize and marginalize and do everything they can to the community that's affected by their actions in order to hide their own culpability.
I think you and I talked once about the possibility of a conspiracy here, the possibility of genetic engineering, the possibility of GMO. The possibilities are endless, and yet, after all this time, still no answers.
Still no answers, and it can be very daunting, but we try not to focus on that. We try not to focus on the fact that there are no answers today, and we look forward to tomorrow when we will have answers. And, and of course, unfortunately, it's a sad fact of life in the modern world. It all boils down to money. Yeah. You've got to have researchers out there who have the money to do the tests, and so they have the credibility to go to their peers and say, hey, look, here's how the cow ate the cabbage. And even that won't guarantee that they're accepted. How many years did it take for people to accept the fact that the Earth revolved around the sun and not the other way around? It's that kind of a nexus.
I understand that, but in today's society, with science at the level it is, and when you have government agencies like the CDC who have the means and the money to perform the studies and research required when it comes to Morgellons, and it seems as if somebody is purposely derailing every effort going.
Yes, it's very easy to draw that conclusion, and I believe that conclusion could be drawn with a great deal of validity. These kind of things, you just don't run into these kind of barriers unless there's something going on somewhere behind the scenes. It doesn't make sense. And nothing about this whole affliction makes sense other than the fact that people are desperately ill, and more people are getting desperately ill every day.
All right, you and I have to take our final break for this hour, Cliff. First of all, thanks very much for joining us. And if you'd like more information, Exo Nation, on the on Morgellons, visit www.thenmo.org. That's www.thenmo.org. Cliff Mickelson and I will be back on the other side of this commercial break as the X-Zone continues on the Talkstar Radio Network, X-Zone TV, and on shortwave from our studios in Hamilton, Ontario, Canada. Right here on the Talkstar Radio Network. Visit our website at www.xzoneradio.com.
This is the X-Zone Broadcast Network, broadcasting worldwide on broadcast affiliates and satellite program providers, including CNN Broadcast Network, Sirius Satellite Network, Star Media, Good News Radio Network, Angel Broadcast Network, Wiki Broadcast Network, and WPBN TV. For more information on the X-Zone Broadcast Network, visit us at www.xzbn.net.
Welcome back to the X-Zone, everyone. If I sound a little off tonight, it's because I've been fighting this darn cold for nearly 2 weeks. So I get rid of it, and I give it to Laura. Laura gets rid of it, gives it to me. And sorry if I sound a little bit out of whack tonight. And so there you go. Cliff Mickelson's our special guest. His website is www.thenmo.org. And first of all, Cliff, thanks very much for joining us and for keeping us in the loop on what's going on in the world of Morgellons. Now, what can we do here at the X-Zone? What can the listeners do?
Well, Rob, that's a good question. I'm glad you asked it. First of all, we'd like to thank you and the X-Zone Nation because you've been here from the beginning for us, and it's that kind of support that really makes us able to continue moving forward day after day and get up and face a new day. Folks can just continue to educate themselves. They can continue to talk to their friends and their neighbors, keep an eye open, educate themselves about this disease, Rob. That's the main thing. That's what it's all about.
All right, so let me see. We've got the CDC and Kaiser Permanente working on this study. Hopefully it comes back within a year. Hopefully, I'm going to pray that it comes back and these people have got enough on the, in the chutzpah department to actually say, listen, based on our research, based on the study that we've conducted, based on the people that we are talking to, there is definitely something here. If they were to come out and say that, what would that mean to the Morgellons community?
It would mean that we have the credibility to move forward into the mainstream and make the application for the monies that we need to do the research that this is going to take.
And, of course, I guess by the CDC having that under their belt, that would just open up the vaults and the research money would be there, as you said. And I could only hope that Dr. Randy Wymore is involved in the research.
Absolutely, because he's been there, as I said earlier, he's been there from the first. He's taken the hits along with the rest of us, and he is a brave soul, and my hat's off to him and to all the other folks who have stepped out and said, you know what, in the face of the disbelief of their peers, they have moved forward and said, there is something here. We don't care what everybody else says. We don't care what kind of pressure we get from our fraternal organizations that we belong to. We believe there's people out there who are suffering, who have an affliction that may someday affect us all, and we're going to investigate it.
To you people, and I'm talking to each and every person listening tonight who has Morgellons, God bless you. You are the bravest people that I know, and if there's anything, Cliff, that we can do here, all you have to do, my friend, is just let us know. It's that simple.
Well, we certainly appreciate that, Rob. And as I'd said once before, and I'll say it again, you guys, X-Zone Nation and Rob McConnell, you guys have been there for us, and God bless you all.
Cliff, take care of yourself. Give my best to all the other people that work so hard with you in trying to get this disease finally understood, finally cured, and finally acknowledged. Take care,
Absolutely. Well, thank you very much.
Take care, my good friend. Cliff Mickelson, www.thenmo.org. That's www.thenmo.org. X-Zone Nation, when we come back from the news at the top of the hour at 6.5 minutes past, I'll be joined by Anna D. Olson. We're going to be talking about growing up Amish. Now, the Amish are a fascinating and quaint society that has maintained an air of innocence, so to speak, living off the land, away from cell phones and 24-hour news cycles. Well, let's see what's going on behind the scenes. Anna D. Nelson is going to be joining us, and we're going to be talking about growing up Amish. 1-877-528-8255 is toll-free. I'll be back after the news as we continue right here on the Talkstar Radio.